Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How has your week been?
Great.
Okay.
All right. So this afternoon, we have the privilege of listening to someone. He's here to teach us data collection and analysis. He's in the person of Dr. Kingsley Ajeman. And so let's all be attentive and then participate in the class when we are asked to. Please mute yourselves so that we can have the maximum silence that we need for the lecture. Enjoy your lecture. Doctor, you are welcome to the General Nursing Group, CODeL Level 300.
Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all of us. Like our moderator rightly said, I'll be engaging you for the next 2 hours. We'll try as much as possible to make it extremely participative. If there are some questions and comments as we go along, you can put it in the chat box. So this afternoon, we'll be looking at data collection, and these are things that I know you are engaged with in one way or the other. We are just trying to find a way to academically put it together in one way or the other to make meaning. So it's not anything strange. There are things that you are quite regular with, and I believe we'll have a very nice lecture. Okay. So just indulge me a bit. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir.
Good. So this is the outline of the presentation. We'll be looking
Yes,
at
please.
Okay. We'll be looking at what data is. We'll look at the types of data, classification of data, overview of data collection methods, how you plan your data, how you plan your data collection. Can we all mute ourselves, please? How you plan your data and how this data is usually analyzed. And I believe that having done some biostatistics, this thing shouldn't come as strange to you. We'll just be brushing them over because I know there's a full course for that. Then we look at the conclusions of the study. So let's make it very participative. When we talk of data, of course, my profile will be available to you. Let's look at data. When we say data, what really comes to mind? Any idea? You can just raise your hand. When you hear the word data, what really comes to mind? Yes, Anastasia. Please go ahead.
Data is an information. Data is a raw information that you collect for a particular program.
Great. So we have information. We have raw. Okay. What again? Who else has an idea about what data is? Just the usual meaning of the word data. The usual meaning of the word data. Okay. Let's make progress. Data. Data is information, like Anastasia said, that you collect for the purpose of answering some question, or when you want to be inquisitive about one thing or another, you try to inquire about it. So I believe that in the course of your nursing, you might have been curious in so many things that you wanted to find meaning to, and that's the whole essence of data. It's information that you collect for the purpose of answering your research question. So, for instance, I don't know what you might have wanted to find answer to this week. Any idea? Maybe you wanted to find an answer or a response to something I believe you go on rotation at the wards. Something might have come up that you wanted to collect data for purpose of answering something. Who came across something this week or last week, last month or last year? You have huge data that you collect in the hospital and the clinics. Who has an idea? Who has collected some data for the purpose of answering something? Yes, Anastasia. Then Anita will continue.
Sir, please, I was collecting data on the effect of the use of the vaccine, heavy vaccine. I wanted to collect data on how effective is the vaccine when given to the baby, when given to babies.
Okay, so what kind of data did you collect?
So I collected the data by taking babies that will receive the vaccine, not the immunoglobulin, the other vaccine,
Okay,
the NGRSV, only the NGRSV.
okay,
So I wanted to see that if only B can be effective when you give to a baby without giving the immunoglobulin. So
okay,
I took some data from
okay. So
mothers with heavy.
that's fine. So, for instance, what questions did you ask? What do you measure?
I measured how effective is the drug without the immunoglobulin.
Yes, I get that. So, in looking at the efficacy of the drug, what did you do? What did you do? Did you take maybe temperature? Did you pull out pull out some blood?
Oh, okay. I interviewed some mothers.
You
I
interviewed.
interviewed some mothers, yes, that had the vaccine, only the vaccine, without the immunoglobulin. And
Okay.
I asked them, how did they know that the drug was effective?
That's great,
And they said,
Anastasia. We'll get into that. That's very good. That's a good observation. Yes, Anita.
Okay, so thank you. I collected data on pregnant women on the ward who were admitted based on with a diagnosis of anemia in pregnancy.
Okay.
So I collected their name, their age, their gestational age, that is their maturity, and then at the time of admission, their age group, and
Great.
then after transfusion, their age group. Those were the data I collected.
That's fine. Let's take the last one from Joyce.
Okay, Doc, please, over the week, the data that I took was vital signs of most patients who came to my facility. Thank you.
Great. So you see, all of you have been with data in one way or the other. Some are measuring in terms of, some are measurements, some are observations. And I believe in the word or in the course of your work, you make some graphs, you have some graph books, especially if you are measuring temperature of a patient, you pick up information. So it's very good. You are all on course. So we talk about data. That is all that is about. You're trying to find information in response to a question that we are curious about, that we want to know. Now, let's try and find a way to categorize or classify data. At this level, we say that data.
Dr. Ajamai.
Yes, please.
Please, I'd like to mute everybody. Then you unmute yourself. You are a co-host. Otherwise, we will not hear anything.
Okay.
They will start disturbing. So if you want to engage them, you have the right, so you can then give them access.
Okay,
Thank you.
Fine.
So you can please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So all the descriptions that you give can be categorized into two. We have what you call the qualitative and the quantitative data. When we say qualitative, we are saying categorical data. And when we say quantitative, we mean numerical data. So you realize that the issues that you raised, the observations and the data that you you were somehow engaged with. Some are qualitative, which means that we are looking at the ordinal in terms of one of you intervention of hemoglobin, which means that whether you want to measure in terms of whether you agree, you mostly agree, whether it's neutral. These are the kind of things that it comes out of ordinal qualitative data set. Then we have the nomina. The nomina use gender, words, symbols, and others are all nominal or qualitative data set. So in a nutshell, qualitative measures usually are what we call opinions, and the quantitative one, you see, they are either discrete or continuous. When we say a data set is continuous, that is where you are likely to have temperature range, distance traveled, time interval, age ranges, and others. Then the discrete is what we have. We go by the dates, the temperatures. If you want to look at the pH levels and the IQ levels of your participants, these are all types of quantitative data set. But simply put, quantitative data set is where we do the real measure. We use the statistical tools to measure the exactness of the data that you have in one way or the other. Now, let's make progress. Let's attempt to classify data by the source. So we have primary data and secondary data. The primary data, we can say that these are data that you are the first to collect. Let's put it that way. You are the first to interact with the data, or you are the first to build up the kind of data set. So one of you wanted to observe pregnant women that came to your ward. You can classify that kind of data as primary data. Now, if you try to put it in a form of analysis in one way or the other, or write a report about it, or engage with it in one way or the other, for the use for another person to be able to use, then we say that that becomes to the person that is going to use it next. That person becomes a secondary data, becomes a secondary data to that person in one way or the other. So all that we are saying is that for primary data, you are the first to collect, you are the first to interact with. If your work ends in one way or the other, another person is going to build on it in one way or the other, we say that your data therefore becomes a secondary data to that user. I hope I'm somewhat clear in this. So we have attempted to provide examples of primary data. We are saying that when you conduct surveys, you do polls, you do interviews, you do a Delphi technique or Delphi analysis or focus group discussions in one way or the other. All the information or the data that you pick from the engagement with these statistical methods, we say that they are all primary data. Now, the secondary data, look at, let's say, financial reports. If you look at a financial report of a company, or let's say, for the purpose of the hospital, we can say that the hospital report or the ward report in one way or the other. So for financial report, you look at sales report, governance report, the missions of companies, they are all secondary data sets. Now, you agree with me that data collection can be a daunting task. It can be very difficult at times. There's a need to be somehow measured and very detailed, because like the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right questions, if you don't have the right design or strategy, or if you don't have the right population or the sample interest that you are going to collect data from, it can be very difficult, and it may not be able to answer the kind of question that you want a response to. Remember, from the very beginning, we are saying that we collect data because there are some questions we want to pose so that we're able to get some form of response to answer our question. So I'm saying to you that you have to be very mindful and very tactful that your research, very tactful kind of research question that you want to answer. I don't know, but for instance, that is why if you are doing any good or meaningful research, you first have to come out of a research proposal. Your proposal, you review the literature in one way or the other, so that you'll be able to identify the gaps in the literature. And based on that, you pose research questions. I know that at this level, it may not come out very clear, but as you progress, you realize that you can't ask a question when you have not reviewed a literature. There's a tendency of most students just trying to convert their research objectives into questions. That usually does not work. That cannot be categorized as proper research. If you really want to do proper research, yes, the objectives are fine. That is what you want to do, but that may not necessarily have to be transferred into research questions. It doesn't usually work that way. Now, how do you want to design, or what kind of strategy do you want to put in place to collect data? For instance, we will get into it very soon. If I want to come to the hospital, depend on kind of question that I'm going to ask or the objective of my research. So you realize that the objective is informed by the design or the strategy. For instance, if I want to observe people in their natural world, I want to come to the hospital and look at maybe the general client experience of the facility or patient experience of the facility. If I make the caregivers and administrators aware in one way or the other, it may have a tendency to influence or impact on the kind of attitude that they'll put up for that particular day. So I may want to observe them in their natural world. So because that's the purpose, I may have to come very discreet in one way or the other to pick up data. So these are things that you have to be very mindful of if you really want to collect data. The kind of research questions for the purpose of your research, your strategy to collect data, and the sample of the population. For instance, if you want to understand the behaviors of pregnant women during labor, I don't think you can go to the recovery wards, because the purpose is labor and not the recovery. So you have to be very mindful of these things. Now, how do we collect these kind of data methods that we spoke about, the primary and the secondary? So as you can rightly see on your screen, for the primary data, you need to employ surveys or questionnaire. You may want to conduct interviews, you may want to do observations, and you may want to perform some form of experiment. Whichever method you want to use, don't forget the purpose or the objective of the data that you want to collect, the strategy, and your sample size or the population that you want to have the data from. So survey is basically questionnaire that you give out to people to give a response to. Interviews basically are also like the word interview. You try to have an interaction with whoever you want to be your respondent. You have a set of questions. It can be a set of questions and you want to ask and have responses to, or it may not be standardized. You want to have general conversation, then you can go back and do whatever you want to do. Observation is what I gave. Then the experiment usually is done in the labs. For instance, somebody wanted to measure HB and stuff. That was to be done. So those are primary source of data collection methods that you can engage in. Now, the second aspect, like I already mentioned, is when that kind of data has somehow been used in one way or the other, then you're also going to interact with it. That becomes a secondary source of data. When we say literature review basically means that the literature, that body of knowledge, books, reports, web information, the internet, government database, like Ghana Statistical Services, Ghana Health Services, Demographic Health Survey, and all those databases that you can think of. Commercial database, like the name suggests, commercial, any information that is available that has been published before. So, for instance, if you talk of, let's say, commercial database, there are a lot of databases around. We have what we call the Scopus. We have Scopus, which is the biggest or the largest bibliographic data set, electronic data set. You have Web of Science. You have PubMed. All of them. It can even be Garden City Journal in one way or the other. It can be Garden City Journal. So we have the web scraping. So what I'm saying is that secondary data set are published information that you want to pick some from for the purpose of you to do analysis or to answer your question. So they are not raw, they are not primary like the primary data. So you are using it. So for instance, if you look at the Demographic Health Survey, it is a database that is so huge. You don't need all to answer your question. There will be certain aspects or certain chapters or certain pages of that report that you may necessarily need. So why would we want to engage in primary data or secondary data? One, it will depend on your research objective. It will depend, again, it also depends whether there's data readily available to answer your question. If the data is not readily available, they may have to resort to primary data. That is where you have to go in and pick up the data yourself. If primary data could be quite daunting, it can be very expensive, but it may also be devoid of biases and other things because you are the first to interact with. Secondary data may not come too handy. It may not be, you may have to do a lot of extrapolation for it to be able to answer your question, but it is readily available and may be able to fit the purpose for which you are collecting data or you are trying to have responses to in one way or the other. So how do you plan? I've attempted to put up 9 steps. The first is for you to identify your data requirements. So for instance, if I want to travel to, let's say, from Kumasi to Konongo, I've identified my requirement. I need to get to Konongo. How do I go? Am I going to go by train? Am I going to buy by the bus, public transport, Uber, or I'll be walking? So we are saying that identify your data requirements. That there's the need to set realistic timelines. Because for you as academic or professionals, you can't have the whole time to yourself. There's a need to, because there are deadlines to be met in one way or the other. And there's some form of data collection that you may necessarily have to do what we call pilot testing, especially for primary data. Because you may be the first to collect those kind of data, you may need to pilot it. So that is why, if you are very conversant with the censuses that the Ghana Statistical Service does, before you realize they've come to numbers and they come to put some numbers on certain houses, those are pilots for the enumeration areas. And based on that, depending on the results that they want, or even when you have even designed your questionnaire under a survey, you may want to test it to see. So for instance, if you have a sample of 100 out of the population, you may want to do some form of piloting by giving it to, let's say, 10 or 15 people to see. the kind of how they will understand the kind of questions that you have posed. That is, you want to test for ambiguity or accuracy. So, based on the kind of feedback that they give you, then you'll be able to know where to make the necessary amendments before you get to the field itself to collect the data. So it may be necessary that you do some form of piloting. Then from there, we go to what we call establishing the data collection procedure. This is where the real strategy really is. So having set realistic timelines, if there's a need to do some form of piloting, having done that, now, what is the strategy? What is the strategy? And you can see that from the arrow, we see that define your research objective. It fits into identifying, if you look at it, I don't know, it's a burgundy color, where we have a bulb in. You can see that feeding into identifying your data requirement, because you can't identify your data requirement when you have not defined your research objective. Remember from the very beginning, the purpose of the research is very, very, very important. Now you look at selecting appropriate data collection methods, also fit into your data requirement, which fits into your objective, and also feeding into your are intertwined in one way or the other. Then you have to have a design. Madam Kirsty will tell you, you are not the first to collect data. Therefore, there's a need for standardization. Your data collection, whether the questionnaires or whatever, must conform to an agreed form of standardization. So, for instance, in the UK here, we have what we call the questions bank. If I want to ask question on age, there can be maybe 1,001 ways in which that question can be posed. It is good you pick from one of them that will fit the purpose of your data collection and pose that question. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't work like that. So the standardization, you can't ask certain questions in the way that you want it, but there's a standard of asking certain questions. Tested way. Now, after having done your standardization, means that you've collected your data. Remember, standardization is fitting into establishing data collection procedures. Then you can go ahead and do the data analysis, have a data analysis plan, which we'll be looking at very, very soon in the subsequent slide. I believe you are making good progress. And of course, if there are any questions so far, then I can continue. So you can raise your hand and you'll be unmuted. And if there are questions so far before we get into the analysis. Any questions so far? You've now collected the data, whether it was a hemoglobin intervention that I wanted to have, whether observing pregnancy, whether taking the vital statistics of patients or clients that came to the facility. That whatever you have collected, you should be able to make meaning out of it. That is the whole essence of data analysis. Don't be too bored with certain terms that will be coming across. It's basic. The overreaction objective is that you have to make meaning out of the data. So you've collected a whole lot of things. How do we make a meaning out of that data set? We need to make meaning. Other than that, will not be the question that we have posed. So that is the whole essence of data analysis, to make meaning out of the data that you have collected. So let's see what the literature says. Okay. So, data analysis. Whether your data was quantitative, it was qualitative, and at times we have what we call mixed mixed data or mixed data analysis. That is, you will have some data set, or your research will require that you don't only use quantitative, you don't only use qualitative, but you may have to have a mixture of two. That is what we call the mixed data analysis. So it's a combination of, so there are some questions that when you have your research question will require that you use quantitative. Another research question, all within the same research, another research question will require that you use qualitative. So when you have done both, we say that in your research, you use a mixed method. I hope that is clear. So we are saying that data analysis is a systematic process of applying different techniques to describe or evaluate information. This is just English. But the whole thing is that the whole essence of data analysis, as I said, was for you to find meaning to the data that you have collected. So when you do that, when you do data analysis, it comes with two advantages. It helps to provide or guide practice and also improve client care. So when, for instance, the hemoglobin intervention that you mentioned, the essence is that whatever that you are going to do, whatever data that you have collected on, if you analyze that data will guide future practice, isn't it? And also improve client experience, because you had a control group and a non-control group. That is the people that you administered the hemoglobin intervention to, and the other group that you did not. So we are saying that whichever way that you look at any form of data analysis is to guide practice, which means that other future people can rely on your procedure so that we improve in our services or our client experience in one way or the other. Now, when it is quantitative, remember the two methods by data sources. We said we have quantitative data collection method, and we have qualitative data collection method. The same thing also appears here. So under the quantitative, we have used statistical tools. And statistical tools can be so many, and they keep improving over time. It can be so many. Quantitative statistical analysis can be so many, right from your BC, JSS, maybe we're dealing with tables, frequency distribution. It's the same thing that you're doing under your biostats, but improved in one way or the other. You move a step further to maybe the universities, the masters and the PhD levels, where you realize that you'll be using a lot of computerized based systems like Stata and other sophisticated things to evaluate. Always about evaluation and trying to find meaning to the data. So we are saying that we use statistical analysis, such as inferential statistical analysis or descriptive statistical analysis for the quantitative. Then for the qualitative, you are most likely to be engaged in coding and saturation. When we say coding, I think we'll be doing next week, all that we are talking about trying to find themes about the various, don't forget that under qualitative, we said it's about opinions, what people have expressed. So you we'll try and find meaning. Themes basically means, coding basically means that we try and find what we call maybe themes or subject matters. So for instance, somebody was talking about hemoglobin. Another person it as blood. Another person may describe it as iron. Can we find a theme for these three things that people have said so that we find a way of categorizing? Then you also realize that you mentioned something called under qualitative called DeFi studies. The DeFi studies, for instance, we put people together to see if they have experts together to see if they can provide an opinion or an expert direction in one way or the other. When we start, everybody speak their mind in one way or the other, and we try to get to a point we call a point of saturation. That point of saturation is what we call a point of consensus. It means that if we're able to get about 70% or more of it, it means that we have gotten to a point of saturation, and that there's an agreeability to whatever that came up for discussion. So data analysis, we'll be looking at quantitative, we'll use statistics to use inferential and descriptive statistics to measure or to find meaning to the data that we have collected. Under qualitative, we'll be looking at coding or themes and saturation to find meaning to the data that we have collected. So let's make good progress. Quantitative research. Okay. So you've collected the data. We have to find meaning to it. And we are going to look at it in two ways: descriptive and inferential data analysis. Descriptive statistics. And I know this may be very, you may be very, very familiar with. First, we want to look at distribution, like frequency distribution. You realize that the frequency distribution is the same thing that you have known in high school, JSS, the same thing that you have known in senior high school, and the same thing that you have come to know under biostatistics. Distribution means that we want to look at, from the word distribution or frequency distribution, how often the thing occurs. You want to have a pictorial view of it. And in doing a pictorial view of it, we can employ the tool of, let's say, the pie chart. We can use the frequency table. We can use the bar chart. We can use the histogram. You can use the histogram in analyzing a data set based on their frequency distribution. So it's a pictorial presentation of how the data is distributed in one way or the other. Then still under descriptive, we can use what we call the central tendency. The central tendency is what we usually say that the measure of where the concentration really is. I'm trying to be very mindful of my words, of where the measure really is. So for instance, the mean, the median, and the mode. These are measures of central tendency. And I know the mean, the mean at JSS, the mean at high school, the mean at statistics. Whatever type it is a measure of central tendency. They say median, and you can see that there's an improvement in the understanding of the median from the JSS, high school, and the biostatistics. Then the mode. We'll come to all that later. Then we have what we call still under descriptive statistics. Then we come to what we call the standard deviation. Standard deviation, as you may know from biostatistics, is about how wide away the range of deviation from the mean. The range of the deviation from the mean. Whereas that you might have come across in biostatistics. Then another way of looking at quantitative data set, apart from the descriptive statistics, is what we call the inferential statistics. You use the simple test procedures, the regressions, the ANOVA, the correlation analysis, and the regression analysis that you might have done in biostatistics. Now, let's move further. Now, how do you descriptive analysis? This is by way of definition. The literature is saying that, as I've explained to you, the data analysis is the process of organizing, summarizing, and presenting data in a meaningful way. So you see how the literature is even describing. You want to find meaning, whether it is pictorial, by pie chart, bar chart, histogram, whatever it is. You have a set of raw data. So on my screen, the raw data we have by categorization, we have respondent number, we have age, we have gender, we have favorite car color. And pictorially or descriptively, it has been presented in the form of a histogram and a pie chart, just to give meaning to the raw data. These are quite basic. You don't need to spend so much time. Now, it is important to understand an aspect of descriptive statistics and know when to use them appropriately. you realize that you can't use, there are certain data set when it's presented to you, certain technique does not work. Don't forget the 9 processes that we went through. The design or the strategy is very, very, very important. So one of the descriptive statistical tools is what we call tables. And it's the simplest form that you can have under descriptive quantitative data set. So this is a table. The table of A, B, C, D, categorizing respondent number, age, gender, and favorite color. That is a table. Okay. Now we have charts. These are the graphical representations. Graphical representations of whatever that happens. So you can have the bar charts, the pie charts. They're all graphical presentations. Then you can have graphs. You use the graphs to show meaning. For instance, in the hospital, you realize that when there's a client, and I know there's a book, I don't know the book yet. Forgive me, I'm not a medic, but I remember if you're admitted in the ward, and there's need to, let's say, measure your monitor or observe your let's say your blood pressure. Anytime you go around the patient to measure, you put it there. If there's a rise, you keep noting the dot, or even temperature, you keep noting the dot, whether there's a rise or a fall, an increase or a decrement, you keep measuring. And at the end of the day, you try to join the dots together to form a graph. What that graph connotes is that graph gives some meaning to the observation that you have made. So to look at it. Then you have the descriptive statistics, like I mentioned, the standard deviation, how the observation deviates from the mean in one way or the other. Now, let's move a bit further. Data must correspond in one way or the other. And these are all ways of trying to analyze and find the right kind of technique to measure your data or analyze your data in one way or the other. So first, measure of central tendency. I made mention of the mean, the median, and the mode in the 2 previous slides that I made mention of. This measures the centrality of your data set. So the mean, the median, and the mode. I know you have done a lot of these things under your biostatistics. The measure of variability, the range of variance, how the data interact among themselves, the standard deviation, the variance, and the coefficient of variations. What it basically means is that the dispersion of the data, or the spread, is it wide away from the mean in one way or the other? That measures variability. Then we talk of measures of distribution. Is it skewed? For instance, if you have a normal bell-shaped normal curve, how is the data? Is it skewed towards a certain direction? That also provides some form of meaning. The measure of correlation. Correlation basically means the strength and the direction of correlation. Basically means the association between the variables. And I want to believe that you have a clear understanding an independent and dependent variables. So all that we are saying under measure of correlation is that when there are two variables to be measured, we want to see the association. So for instance, if you are doing some work on let's say obesity, BMI, and independent variable like let's say so your BMI is the measure of your height weight ratio, which that is the dependent variable. You're looking at independent variables like let's say age. You want to see the relationship between those two or multiples of side variables against the dependent variable. That is what we mean correlation. We want to look at association between those those variables. Now, remember I said quantitative, you have the inferential. We are done with the descriptive. Any question before we move into the inferential analysis? But the overarching objective is that all form of analysis is geared towards you having the meaning data that you have collected. So if there's any questions so far, I'll just pause a minute and you can raise your hand. I'll pick it up. Okay, let's make progress. Now, if you are confronted with a data set, whether your strategy is to use the quantitative, you have the option depending on the nature of your data. Is a hand up? Jessica, is your hand up? Okay. If you are confronted with a data set, depending on your objective and the nature of the data that you have, you may either use the descriptive data analysis quantitative or the inferential data under quantitative. Now, the inferential, infer, let's take the word, the English word, something is you infer. How do you mean? Just the English word, grammar, infer. What does infer means? Yes, any idea? Yes, Patience. Patience, go ahead. Patience, you can go ahead. Oh, I need to unmute you. Sorry. Patience, go ahead. Oh.
It means different.
Sorry?
Different. Infer, different.
Infer means difference.
Yes.
Any more, someone else to try? Infer, just the English meaning of the word infer. Yes, Idrisu. Idrisu, go ahead. Idrisu. I have to unmute you, but Idrisu, Kester, you have to help me unmute Idrisu. Oh, technically. Yes, Idris, I think you are muted. You are unmuted. You can go ahead and speak. Infer, any suggestion? Idrisu? Yes, Idris, I think you are unmuted.
Yes, Master. To infer means to draw conclusion to something.
To draw conclusions, to draw. Yes, what again? To draw, to induce, to compare in one way or the other. Okay, great. So that's the whole essence of inferential analysis. You want to induce, you want to draw, you want to see how things can be compared in one way or the other. We can lower our hands, please, if you don't mind. So that's the whole essence of inferential analysis. So that is where we get into the area of hypothesis. Hypothesis. We want to verify a claim or a statement about the relationship of a relationship, about the relationship in a population based on a sample. So we have what we call the null hypothesis, that's the default or the no effect claim, and the alternative hypothesis, the opposite or the effect. So for instance, who can, the hemoglobin F, what kind of qualitative data analysis can best help in providing an answer to whatever we set out to do in that hemoglobin where we had a control group and uncontrolled group. We can provide an idea. You agree with me that because we wanted to draw inferences, the inferential analysis type of quantitative analysis where we test hypothesis will be the way to go for that particular kind of observation or research or analysis that we intended to do. Inferential statistics are the methods or tests used to perform hypothesis testing for different types of variables or relationships. This is the definition the literature gave, and the explanation is what I've provided. There are a lot of inferential statistics that we will use, but our concentration today and our level will be the ANOVA. We'll use the ANOVA, whether the t-test, ANOVA, regression, or chi-square. Don't bother yourself too much about what the difficulties, the perceived difficulties this may be in one way or the other. Let's make progress. Now, under the t-test, we have the binomial test, the chi-square test, meaning all these are just for the purpose of helping you, but it's not something you are going to get into them. We'll get into the ANOVA, but for when certain asked, why ANOVA test? ANOVA test is a form of test that you do under inferential quantitative statistical data. And we have two types of ANOVA. We have the one-way ANOVA and the two-way ANOVA. The one-way ANOVA is multiple levels of one factor and check the variance of 3 or more factors. What does this mean? You get a mean when you look at the two-way ANOVA. I'm saying that it also compares two factors and is to study the effect of two independent variables on a dependent variable. So if let's say we are doing a study on obesity and want to look at the relationship between the dependent variable being the BMI and the two independent variables, let's say age and religion or ethnicity, you realize that there are two factors. The effect of the two factors, the two independent variables on a dependent variable, because the dependent variable can at any time, most of the time, at our level, will be 1. It will be very difficult to have two dependent variables, but usually you have multiple. You have multiple independent variables coming your way as you make progress. Then the chi-test. All that you need to know at this level is what the chi-test does. The purpose of the chi-test. The chi-test confirms whether the independent variables are related or unrelated. That is all that you want to know. The direction. Is there a relationship or there's no relationship? Regression. You don't need to bother your head so much about the types, the dependent variable and its nature, independent variable, the relationship between the variables. All that you need to know at this level. Whether there's a relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variable. That is regression. Now, all that we have said, we need to check the validity, reliability, generability, and the significance of the results. Because you remember from the beginning and the data analysis is that we want to find meaning to the data. So you hear statisticians call terms like confidence level, p-values, effect sizes. They are all checking the validity, reliability, or generability. Because at the end of the day, when your research is conducted, you want to be able to know whether you follow the right process. Remember standardization, whether your results can be said to be valid. Reliability means that can others follow your same process in arriving at the results that you conducted? Can we follow the same procedure to attain the same results? Then, and having had the results, can we be confident to generalize the results in one way or the other? So these are the things that we use in measuring them to know whether your research or the data that you have collected is valid, is reliable, and can be generalized. Now, data set or to every research, it comes with a lot of challenges or limitations in one way or the other. That has a tendency to affect the quality or the validity of the results. So one of such things that can fight against the quality and validity of a result is what we call errors. Errors by the grammar definition of an error means that discrepancies or mistakes in what you have set out to do. We are not perfect. Errors are bound to happen. Then another thing that can really militate against the validity or the quality of your data or your research is what we call biases. Biases. Most of the time you are most likely to get into research with your own predefined set of outcomes. And when the data is not playing out the way you want it, you may want to somehow skew it or distort it so that you get your premeditated result in one way or the other. Then outliners. In your data analysis, you realize that one observation may have the tendency to skew the whole distribution towards a certain direction. So say that those may become an outliner. For instance, a simple mean of 5 observations of, let's say, 1, 1, 2. So let's say 1, 1, 2, 10, 3. There are 5, there are 6 observations. There are 5 observations. So you have 1, you have 1, you have 2, you have 10, and you have 3. You realize that if you add up, you are likely to get, so this 2, this is 4, this is 14, this is 17. So 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 10 plus 3 will give a general observation of, let's say, 17. Simple mean, you may want to divide it by 5. If you divide it, to give you 3 point something. But you realize that the mean outliner 10 has pushed the mean to a level that is not within the mean. So we are saying that outliners have a tendency to distort the validity of your result. Then we have another thing we call missing values, missing data. It's not every data that you set out to do. For instance, you administer, let's say, 200 questionnaires, and you realize that only 20 of them returned the questionnaires. Most of the values or data, you can say, are missing. you want to go by what we call complete deletion, there's a standard that if missing data is beyond a certain percentage, you can't delete. You have to find a way to account for that missing data. There's what we call multi-collinearity. These independent variables are highly correlated with each other. It becomes very, very difficult, and it has a tendency of affecting the quality and validity of your results. Now, how do we address these effects or problems that we have identified as being able to, in one way or the other, affect the validity or otherwise of your data or your research? Under errors, it can be corrected by increasing the sample size and using the appropriate sampling technique. So for instance, there's a sample size calculation that we have to adhere to. You don't have to pick a very insignificant sample out of a very huge population. If you do that, it becomes very, very difficult to validate, generalize your results. Then biases, it can reduce by having a very rigorous research design and data collection methods and data analysis techniques, so that it is the analysis that is giving out the results and not what you feel or what you think should be. It is data. That is why usually in the political arena, we say that it's a numbers game and everything is by science and data, like Chemaun to me said some time ago. So data is very, very important and must be collected and analyzed in a very, 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 very standardized way. Remember standardization and the 9-step procedure that you need to carry on in an earlier slide. Then outline. There are different ways of treating them, and you can do deletion, transforming, or replacing them. So complete deletion means I'll treat that one in addition to the missing data. The next page is the missing data. So I'm missing data and outliners. There are ways of accounting for them. So the literature suggests that when missing data is less than 5%, that means that it can be deleted. It means that the results will be inconsequential. But if it is more than 5%, then you can use what we call the imputing or modeling methods in accounting for them. It's a whole system and a whole statistical software that is used in generating the imputing and the modeling system. But for our level, all that we know is that there can only be complete deletion if the missing data is less than 5% of the sample. The multi-collinearity can be resolved by using different techniques such as removing, combining, and transforming variables. So all that you need to know at this level is that multi-collinearity is a problem, and that problem can be resolved by removing, combining, or transforming the variables. Now, what have we been saying all day? The more than an hour that we have been interacting, what have we been saying? All that we are saying is that there are different approaches to data collection and analysis. We have the quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods, and they have their own advantages and disadvantages and limitations, as we have known from the beginning. Now, we are again saying that the main types of data collection methods may include surveys, interviews, observations, and experiments, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. The basic techniques under descriptive data analysis is what are the tables, the charts, the graphs, and the descriptive statistics, and their uses and interpretation, which we have seen in earlier slides. There are advanced techniques of inferential data analysis, and we concentrated on the hypothesis testing using the inferential statistics, where we concluded on the ANOVA. And we are saying that there are a lot of things that can work against the validity, reliability, and the generability of our research or our data collection. So These are few learning materials or references that you can have a look at. I'll pause here. If there are questions, I'll take them. Thank you very much. So question time. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself so I pick them up. Yes, Martha. Martha, please go ahead. Oh, what is happening? Martha, go ahead. Martha, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hello, sir. Can you please go over with the ANOVA?
Hello?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Martha, please go ahead.
Lord, I want you to go a bit over with the ANOVA place that we used.
You want me to go over?
With the ANOVA test that we use.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say was that there are two types of ANOVA tests that you can do. You have the one-way ANOVA and the two-way ANOVA. And one-way ANOVA looks at one factor check against three or more factors. The two-way ANOVA basically looks at two independent variables and their relationship with one dependent variable. And I gave the example of let's say if you are measuring, if you look at a study in obesity, where your dependent variable is the BMI or the obesity itself. You want to look at the effect of independent variables, two variables on the. So you may want to compare age, which is an independent variable. Let's say gender, which is also another independent variable, and they are related with a dependent variable being the BMI. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, Anita, your hand is up. Unmute yourself and ask the question.
Thank you, sir. My question also has to do with the ANOVA. I want to know, unlike the descriptive ones that we can see in charts and table forms, with the ANOVA, are you going to write in a sentence form?
Oh, okay. No. Remember we did, one of the slides spoke about relationship with the variables. And that is where we look at the correlations and the regressions. Okay, so having added it, okay, so this slide answers your question. Measure of correlation or measure of I. So you use the correlations, use the Spearman's rank correlation coefficients, and all those statistical tools to measure. So you don't write it. You pick up the values and you put them in this you put them in this this kind of statistical tools, whether you are using the rank correlation coefficient or the Spearman's the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. So you don't write them. They are all statistics because you pick the data. So, for instance, let's say my main dependent variable be the BMI, and the independent variables being, let's say, age and gender. Definitely, there are values that I'll pick. So let's say if your BMI is, let's say, it's a 32 kg per meter square, and your age is, let's say, depending on how the age question was asked, your age is, let's say, maybe 23, and your gender, you are male or female. Sorry, you are female. We put these three together, and we see the relationship, or whether there's a relationship or an association. That's what it means. Is that clear?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So when you put them in the system, please, how will it come in a table form, or
so if
how
you
would
put them in the system, in the software, it will come in the form of a table that provides direction. So we will see whether there's an association or whether there's a relationship or there's no relationship.
Oh, all right, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Any other question? Okay. If there are no further questions, then I think we've had a very good time. And if there are questions that will come out of your personal studies, you can make the model coordinator aware. We'll take it from there. Okay, that has been very, very great interacting with you, and I look forward to meeting you next week too. Have a very good weekend. Stay safe.
God bless you. Please, can we have the slide?
So,
My incoming MP.
Please, can we have the slide?
Yes, the model leader will give it to you. Kester will give it to you.
Thank you.
Are you taking us next week?
Yes, we'll do something next week.
Oh,
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Don't.
We love you. You are a darling.
It's also going. Or you need to.
They don't have money in your account. Elbow pin na edili same. Momo ni store. Huh. From this all. Pin na edili same. Scan it.
So who has unmuted
Rita.
themselves? Rita, and you are just disturbing everybody because of what is the meaning of that? A visiting lecturer delivers a lecture, and then you show your characters. iPhone is still in the class. Somebody is still called iPhone in the class. As I want to hear a summary. What did you hear? As usual, they were asking for slides. And one here, when the person is here, that you have to ask all your questions. It is slides that you are interested in. When the person is live, I need about 10 people to tell me what they heard. We all listened, and so what did you hear? Anita.
Yes, sister. Sister, please, I learned and heard that data is information that you collect for the purpose of answering your research question. And I also learned that we classify data by source under primary and then secondary data. And for the primary data, they are the raw data the researcher collects. And then for the secondary data, I learned that they are the data available, or it's already available, and the researcher takes them and then builds something up from there. And an example of the secondary data is sales report or nursing reports. And then an example of the primary data is a survey or polls. Please, that's what I learned. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? I need 10. 10 of you. So I've just gotten only one. And so let's do the needful. Yes, Esther, your hand is up. I can't hear you. Pokia, your hand is up.
Please, I also learned about data analysis.
I'm listening.
Of which he said it simply means making meaning out of the data collected. Some of the advantages.
It's like you are swallowing your pen. I can't hear you.
Please, I also learned about data analysis, of which he said it simply means making meaning out of the data collected. Some of the advantages he made mention of was that it guards the practice and also improve client care. And under that, we can have the quantitative and then the qualitative data analysis. Under that one, too, again, we have the inferential under the quantitative and descriptive, still under the quantitative. And then the qualitative too, it seeks to just analyze the data. That way, we do it by coding and then saturation. Please, that was what I heard.
Thank you. Laurentia.
Sister, please. I also heard that when it comes to classification of data by source, we have the primary data and then we have the secondary data. And then with the primary data, it is a first-hand collection of data, mostly by interviews and then by survey. And then with the secondary collection of data source, for that one, we review financial reports and then sales reports. And then I also heard that with the overview of data collection, when you are collecting any data at all, certain factors like the the research question, and then the purpose of the research, and then also the research design, and then the technology involved, the strategy involved, as well as the population, and then the sample of interest, and then our research objective can have a huge effect on the data collection method. And then with the data collection method, please, he talked about the primary data collection method, that we can use the surveys, the interviews, observation, and then experimentation to collect our data. And then please, with the secondary one, he said that we can decide to review literature and then government database for information, as well as we can use web scraping, where we look for information from other webs so that we get it. Please, I also heard about the data analysis, where he said that data analysis is you making a meaning from the data you have collected. And then with the data analysis, we can decide to use the quantitative data analysis, the mixed method of data analysis, and then the quantitative. Please, that's what I heard with that.
Thank you. Abigail.
Yes, sister. Sister, please, I also learned the steps in collecting data. And I learned that before you collect the data, you have to define your research objective. Thus, you identify the data requirements. Then you select appropriate data for your collection. That's the method that you use. Then you have to design a method for your data collection. Then you have to do a piloting before you do standardization. Then you collect your data and you do the data analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. I've gotten how many? 4. So the rest of you, what did you hear? If you don't raise your hand, I will mention your name because we all heard something. Yes, Evelyn.
Thank you, sister. Please, I also learned about the challenges and limitations that affect the quality or the validity of the results that you get. And he made mention of errors and biases, and then outliers, and then also how to address these limitations. And then he said with the errors, you have to increase the sample size and then use the appropriate sampling technique. And then with the bias, he spoke of using a vigorous research design and then analysis technique. And then with the outliers and missing values and multi-columnars, he said with that one, you have to use different techniques, like with the outliers, using deletion or transformation or replacing the data. Then with the missing values, to use different methods like deletion and imputing, and then also modeling. With the multi-columnars, I also heard that you can also use different technique like removing. Sister, that's what I learned.
Thank you. Yes, Emilia.
Thank you, sister. Please, I also heard about the ANOVA, and he said it is used to determine differences between the research results. And we have the one-way ANOVA and the two-way ANOVA. Please, that's all.
And are you hearing ANOVA for the very first time?
Yes, sister.
Are you even not doing biostats? Are you not doing biostats?
So please, we are doing stats.
As we haven't reached there.
No, sister.
Yes. Please, no.
You haven't reached ANOVA.
Yes,
Then you won't reach. We are almost at the tail end of the semester. Yeah, so I have 6. Emilia. Was it Emilia that spoke?
Yes, sister.
So how many do I have? I need 10. I have 6. 4 remaining. Mm-hmm. 4 remaining. Let me sample some. Agatha Sahin.
Leave there, leave there. Leave there, okay, let me close the door.
Where is Agatha Sahin? A question has been asked. Yes, honey, your hand is up.
Sister, please, I also heard about the inferential analysis. And when you are talking about inferential data analysis, it simply means drawing a conclusion to your data using statistical methods. And inferential analysis normally deal with the hypothesis testing. And when you talk about hypothesis testing, it's a procedure of making and verifying a claim or a statement about a parameter or a relationship of a population based on the sample. And under the hypothesis analysis, we have the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. And the null hypothesis is the default or the low effect claim. Then when you talk about the alternative hypothesis, is the opposite of the null hypothesis. That is the one that has effect claim. Then under the hypothesis testing, we have what do you call it? We choose the significance value. That one based on the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis, whether it's true or it's not. Then you calculate the test statistics. Then example of some of the inferential data analysis. We have the chi-square test. We have the binomial test. We have the ANOVA. We have the correlation analysis and the regression analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Where is Sahin? Abigail Sahin? Or she was not at the lecture? Higanku. What did you
Yes,
hear?
sister.
Mm-hmm.
Sister, please, I heard about 9 steps for planning data collection. And he said first you have to identify your data requirements. Then you set a realistic timeline. Then after that, you pilot your testing. Then you establish data collection procedure. And then you define your research objectives. Then you select appropriate data. Then you choose your collection method. Then you design the method that you've chosen and you standardize your questionnaires. Then after all that, you analyze the data plan. So please, that's what I also heard.
Thank you. Yes, Ramatu.
Yes, sister, we also
Bahamata.
have
Bahamata.
yes, please. We also learn about the relationship of data, where we made mention of the mean, the median, and the mode. Also, we had measures of variability, where we also had the range, standard deviation, and then the variance. Then we move on further to mention measures of distribution, where we had normality and outliers. Then the measures of correlation, we had a Spearman's rank correlation and Kendall's correlation. Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
That was what I had.
So I'm still waiting for Abigail Sahin. Baby, Obi, I'm uncle family. Marietta, your hand is up. Marietta, your hand is up. She has raised her hand. Your hand is up. Unmute yourself. Maybe the hand is up by accident. Marietta, why is your hand up? Doris Kuma, what did you hear? Doris, what did you hear? You realize that this is an examinable thing. And so don't think that I didn't teach it. And so it will not come. It is part of exams. It has been taught. It was on your course outline. And it has been taught. And so take note of this. It has been taught. That's why I'm trying to get a recap from you all. I will not talk about it again. So have this at the back of your mind. I'm not going to talk about this again. Have this at the back of your mind. Irene Brown Forson, what did you hear? Irene Brown Forson, what did you hear?
Mommy, please, it was raining heavily here, so I couldn't hear
You didn't hear anything. Then it
Yes,
means that when there is exams on it, you can pass.
Mom, I'll
Stella
try my best and
Ofori,
learn.
what did you hear? I hope it was not raining at your end. Stella Ofori.
Yes, ma. Hello.
What did you hear?
Sister, please, I also heard the challenges and limitations that affect the quality and validity of the results. And you also said we have the errors. These are the differences or discrepancies between the observed values and the true values of the parameters. And you also said we have the biases. And there are also a systematic or consistent deviation or distortion of the results. Please, that's what I.
Thank you. Fauzia Tanku, what did you hear?
Sister, please. I learned about the different approaches to data collection and analysis, which some of them are the quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. And he also mentioned about type of data collections, such as the survey, the interview, the observations and experiments. He talks about the basic techniques of descriptive data analysis. And he said we can use tables, charts, graphs, and descriptive analysis and their interpretations. That's what I also heard.
Benedict Aquenu. Eunice Yelson.
Sister.
What did you hear? So some of you attend lectures and then you don't hear anything. Is that the story? You come to school and you don't hear anything. Helena.
Sister, please. I also learned about addressing the limitations and challenges that affect quality and validity of results. And one, with the errors, they can be reduced by increasing the sample size or also using appropriate sampling techniques. And with biases, they can be minimized by using proper research design or data. And with the outliners, they can be treated by using different strategies.
Oh, we can't hear
and with
you.
the missing value. Oh. Hello, sister.
I can't hear you.
Hello?
I hear noise.
Hello?
So the Matilda Nefi that had unmuted herself. Yes, Fatima.
Sister, please. I heard about the techniques of descriptive statistics. And under it, you have tables, charts, graphs, and descriptive statistics. And the tables, it consists of rows and columns that shows the values or frequencies of variables or categories. And under the chart, he said you have bar charts, pie charts, line charts, and scatter plots. And under the graph too, he said they include the histograms, sequence, polygons, and box plots. And then under descriptive statistics too, they said they are the numerical sums of data that measure the central tendency. So they include mean, median, mode, range, standard deviation, quality, quartiles, percentiles, etc. That's what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail.
Okay, sister. I also learned about
Please, I can't hear you.
Oh, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sister. I also learned about the methods that depends. Choice of data collection depends on several factors, such as the research question. And under the research question, he said the data collection method should align with the aim and the scope of the research. And then the second one is the research design. And he said that one, the data collection method should fit with the type and the level of the research. And we have the population or the sample of interest. And that one too, he said the data collection method should suit the characteristics and availability of the target group. This is what I've heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
So I also learned about the forms of sources of data.
Please, I
And
can't
under
hear
that
you.
one, okay. I learned about the types of data, where we have the forms, the sources, and then the level of the data. So classification of the data by form, we have the quantitative and then qualitative. And under that one is divided into two. Under the qualitative is divided into two, where we have the ordinal and then the nominal. And also under the quantitative, we have the discrete and then the continuous data, where under the continuous, we can have the temperature, the age and time interval. And under the, what do you call it? The discrete or interval, where we have range of temperature, let's say the normal range being 36.2 to 37.2. And also under the qualitative, where we have the nominal, we can have names, gender of people, and then under the ordinal, where things are arranged in maybe we are arranging things in alphabetical order or maybe other ranks. That's what I was saying.
Thank you. Who can summarize all that was done today? I need two people to do the summary. Break everything that was done today for us. Two people. Two people. Two people. Yes, yeah.
Yes, ma, please. I think on the whole, what he said today was about how we're going to organize our data. We should ensure that if you are using a qualitative method, it should be representative. We put it either in a pie chart or in a histogram. If you are using a qualitative method, the coding should be done, the saturation should be done for you to have a very good work. He also laid emphasis on our biases, the sample sizes that we are using. And then the most salient thing that he made me understand was that when we make mistakes or we present our research work and then certain points are pointed out, for example, if the mistake has to do with the bias, we know that means we have to work on our sample size. If it has to do with the outliers, we would have to delete some other factors and then insert other ones to make the work a meaningful entire not changing the entire hello. not changing the entire work per se, but then there's a portion of it that would have to be refined. And then he also made us to understand that there are other things that we would need to put in line to check the data that we are collecting. One, he made mention of the correlations, that we can use the tables. We can also use a linear method. All those ones are just to check the degree of difference or the variances. And he came to inferences and he asked us what he means by inferential. And then we said to deduce or to raise assumptions. So in deducing our work, what are we supposed to do? He laid emphasis on the fact that when we put all these measures that we have studied or a borrowed course from the biostatistics, we'll be able to make meaning out of the whatever it is that we are deducing from the work. And then it makes the interpretation of the work also very easy for us. And when the work is skewed towards a different angle or it doesn't really make and then we'll balance ourselves. So I think on the whole, that is the kind of check and balances he placed on us today.
Thank you. But you people have been talking about saturation. I haven't heard anyone telling me what saturation actually is.
Mommy, he says that the saturation, when you do the qualitative data, it comes with a coding. So the saturation, you would realize that if, let's say we do a piloting of whatever it is that information that we want to receive from our people. If you do a pilot out of 10, and let's say 8 of them are responding towards the same thing that you actually would want to know, or whatever your statement, the problem statement was centering around, then it means you've gotten to your saturated point.
Okay. Yes,
yes,
the
ma.
second
So please,
person.
that's
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome, ma.
Another person raised the hand. Why did the person put it down? Another summary, then I think we are good to go. Don't disgrace me. At least I realized that you were participating. That was a plus. So now that I don't know whether me, I was on the platform all the time. I didn't talk. And you people were contributing, and as usual, the complainers were also doing their work. Some people, they come to the platform, all that they know how to do best is complain. His voice is low. I can't hear anything. Or the SANA exams. About when are you writing exams? Now research methods, exams about. Or them to sa. Now I query. Because every time I can't hear. Hey, Asambe Ukraine. So the last summary, you've done well. Because I was listening, whatever you are saying, I know that, yes, he taught those things. And so you were very attentive. If I hadn't muted you people, it would have been disaster. The story started. And who will give me the last summary? So we go. Yes, Rahamata.
Sister, first we started from the approaches to data collection and analysis, where we mentioned a qualitative, quantitative, and the mixed methods and their advantages and limitations. Then we move on to the types of data collection method, where he mentioned interviews, observations, and surveys. Then we also, from there, we move on to the basic techniques of descriptive data analysis, such as by using these tables, charts, and graphs. Then we move on to the advanced techniques of inferential data analysis, where we also spoke about the
a hypothesis testing, and then that's all I can remember.
And so the hypothesis testing, didn't you talk about type 1 and type 2 errors? Where are the people? Where are the analysis gurus? Where are they? Esther, why are you laughing? Huh? Why are you so happy? Oh, you didn't talk about type 1 and type 2 errors. Me, I'm just asking. Where are my reps? Oh, when it comes to research, who is preparing the voice? Ramata. Somebody said he didn't say that. And I'm a boy. Where is it? He didn't talk about that. Okay. So you people say, but me, it is part of my exam questions. So what will happen? This thing today, I am not teaching it again. Where are the reps? No. No, no. Is a no. Is a no. Is a no. 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 Alberta, your hand is up. Alberta, your hand is up.
Sister, please, you were asking about your reps, so I raised my hand.
I know now, Obeka. Titi. Mary, dear. No, 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 no. Huh? I hope we are not meeting this Sunday, please. We are done with tutorials, right?
Sir, please, we are meeting.
We are.
We don't have any. What do we have to talk about?
Please, we are meeting.
Oh, we are not.
Please, we are meeting. Sir, please, the sampling.
We didn't finish.
You didn't finish what? Well, we are seriously meeting ourselves. All right, so fortunately, we've got Yah to give us the summary. I think Ramata also talked about it. And all those that contributed. Somebody has written null and alternate hypothesis. He mentioned, he talked about it. Me, I was here all the time. Didn't you see me? I was on the platform all the time. I didn't want to speak. I was on the platform all the time. Thank you all for your contributions. When you asked for the slides, what did he say?
She said Mama Crystal will give it to us.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes,
Yes.
sister.
Are you sure he said that?
Yes, sister.
Yes, sister.
Sister, that's what
So
he
what will
said.
happen if I don't give it to you?
Oh, sister,
Yeah.
you give it to us. I know.
Sister, we beg.
So all
Are you
these
everything you
people
say
were
you
there
beg?
and they
Everything
were
you say you beg.
quiet.
Why? Everything you beg, everything you beg. Okay. I have the slides. I'll see what I will do about it.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Moo.
But you didn't, some of you, when I called you, say will be the they saying, hey, Kumana said, she didn't say anything. Will be the you talk. Based on these people, that
Sister
is why
Hegayunkum, I
I will
said
not, I will not give you anything. You wrote notes. People so use the notes. Use the notes so that people who are not serious will not get anything to read, so that they can score 0. All right, then. I think we had a wonderful session. I heard people loving him. Hey, a teacher love ni bi anase a love for
Friendly love.
Agape
love.
Agape
love.
Agape love. Yeah, agape love. Thank you so very much for being cooperative. I believe that he was also impressed. He didn't wait for us to even thank him. He left the platform.
Oh.
He left too. The moment I unmuted myself, I saw him leaving. And so we couldn't get the opportunity to thank him. We will thank him using the email. So my reps, start typing something so that we can send it to him in appreciation for the lecture he delivered. And so on this note, thank you all for your participation, for your attention. He's in Accra, so the fufu there, we can't invite him. Please, midwives, raise your body. The sponsorship is not coming. Raise your body, and let the sponsorship flow.
Sister, you bring check.
I think he's the UK, he's all over. Did he tell you that he is the CEO of the scholarship something? Did he tell you that?
No.
But I know. Man.
Some of you know MPP for no say omunim. I think he's a die-hard MP. And I think the Eastern region people, the Oda people, Oda and the Siakwa and its environs. I believe you should know him. I was also a fine boy.
Hey,
and then I love you. Yeah. Maybe say a teacher there. Maybe so.
You're a fine man.
Now, any a mommy and coffee. Mama, bye.
I need to be love you too.
Mama, bye.
We love you so much. Bless you.
Yeah, why he helped coach so please learn so that when you go to the exams room, I think we have the last lecture, right? We have the last lecture.
Yes, sister.
Okay, then. So,
God bless you,
enjoy
sister.
your
We
weekend.
love you.
Now, we are sure
Sister,
the
we
love,
didn't
say love,
disgrace you
Papa dear.
today.
Love you, I love you.
My twins love you too.
We love you, Mama.
Okay, I love you too. I love
Please.
you. I love you too.
Love you more.
Thank you,
Because I
sister.
love you too.
Sister,
I love you
areas for
too.
the
I
exam.
love you
Areas
too.
for the exam.
Exams not there
Yeah.
from crane
Areas
to
for the end of term.
it
Areas
is
for the
from
end of term.
Okay,
it is
ma.
crane to
Sister
crank.
Aries.
Sisters, come
No,
and
Oh,
sit.
sister, we
From the
beg.
title of the course
We
oh,
to
beg
the
you.
Sister,
last
we'll meet
course.
you on
Why?
Sunday.
Bye bye.
Sister,
Bye bye.
we
They
beg.
are bunny. Bye bye.
Sister, the slice.
Slice bay.
Today on. Today's on.
Koda.
Sister
Koda
Sunday, we'll meet
dache.
you.
This sister.
Why
Koda
here?
dache.
Another baba, one
Come
come.
na me de aba.
Yes,
Bye
for
bye.
Meet you on Sunday,
Bye,
sister.
sister.
Areas.
We will meet at the Fufu party area.